The air hung thick with the scent of popcorn and cotton candy, a sugary sweetness struggling to mask the damp, earthy smell of old wood and neglect. The Ferris wheel, a skeletal giant against the bruised sunset sky, groaned a mournful lament as the wind whistled through its rusty spokes. This was Gloomwood Park, a place famous not for its rides, but for the chilling legends of the Phantom of the Funhouse, a ghostly figure said to guard a lost fortune. For Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby-Doo, it was just another mystery waiting to be unraveled. But this time, something was different. As Shaggy and Scooby debated whether to spend their last few dollars on another round of corn dogs, Velma's keen eyes scanned a faded, peeling flyer taped to a lamppost. She muttered. It says, "No trespassing. Violators will be prosecuted for financial fraud." That's not a typical warning for a haunted attraction. A shiver, not from the cold, but from a sudden, unexplained draft, ran down the spines of Shaggy and Scooby. A low, guttural laugh echoed from the depths of the funhouse, sending a flock of startled pigeons scattering into the twilight. A fleeing shadow, too solid to be a ghost, too swift to be a person, darted across the entrance. The gang looked at each other, their playful banter replaced by a shared sense of foreboding. The mystery wasn't about a ghost seeking revenge. It was about something far more tangible and far more dangerous. A secret with a price tag. And the gang was about to learn that in the world of ghosts and goblins, the scariest monster of all might just be a lack of good financial sense. The neon lights of Gloomwood Park flickered erratically, casting long, dancing shadows across the cracked pavement. A single mournful tune from a long, broken calliope drifted on the breeze, a ghostly echo of a more joyous time. It was a perfectly spooky setting, and for the members of Mystery Inc., it was home. Like, what a total drag, man, Shaggy groaned, clutching his stomach with a theatrical flourish. My stomach is making more noises than that old haunted house. He eyed a nearby concession stand with a longing look. I could really go for a triple-decker nacho dog right about now. Scooby-Doo, ever the loyal companion in both hunger and fear, wagged his tail enthusiastically. "Nacho dog, Rhea!" Fred, ever the strategist, shook his head, a wry smile on his face. "Hold on, guys. Remember what we talked about? We need to stick to our budget. We've got to save some money for gas for the mystery machine." Velma adjusted her glasses, her eyes scanning the park's grounds with a studious intensity. "Fred's right, Shaggy. It's all about financial planning. You can't just spend all your money as soon as you get it, or you'll never be able to afford the important things, like, more magnifying glasses." Daphne, looking stylish as always in her purple scarf and boots, laughed. "Or a new hairstyle. But seriously, guys, let's not get too caught up in the budget talk. We have a mystery to solve." She pointed towards the decrepit funhouse, a looming structure with a single red light blinking in one of its vacant windows. The legend says the Phantom of the Funhouse guards a treasure lost by a greedy ringmaster. A treasure? Shaggy and Scooby's eyes lit up in unison. Like a treasure of ... snacks? Fred clapped Shaggy on the shoulder. "We'll find out. Let's split up, gang. Daphne and I will check out the haunted carousel. Velma will investigate the Hall of Mirrors. And Scooby and Shaggy can ... go get some snacks, but just one, okay?" Shaggy and Scooby high-fived, a collective zoinks, of excitement escaping their lips. As they bounded towards the concession stand, a glint of something shiny caught Scooby's eye. He stopped, his nose twitching. Behind a half-collapsed ticket booth, partially buried in the dirt, was a small, ornate music box. Scooby nudged it with his paw, and a faint, tinny tune began to play. "Like, what's that, Scoob?" Shaggy asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and dread. As the music box played, Shaggy noticed something strange. The tune was familiar, but distorted. It sounded like an old circus song, but the notes were all wrong, almost like a coded message. He also noticed a peculiar symbol etched into the box's lid, a small, stylized dollar sign with a serpent wrapped around it. Shaggy picked it up, feeling a strange coldness from the metal. Suddenly, the lid of the music box popped open, and a single, crisp $100 bill fluttered out, seemingly brand new. "Zoinks, like a free keynote, man. We're rich!" Shaggy exclaimed, his eyes wide with disbelief. He quickly snatched it up, stuffing it into his pocket. Scooby let out a happy bark, a look of pure joy on his face. "Don't spend it all in one place, you two." Fred's voice echoed from a distance, just as a low, mournful howl echoed from the funhouse. This wasn't the wind. It was closer. A lot closer. Shaggy and Scooby froze, their eyes locked on the funhouse's entrance. The music box in Shaggy's hand felt suddenly heavy. The $100 bill felt wrong. As the howl intensified, a shimmering spectral figure floating out of the funhouse, its long, bony fingers reaching towards them. Why, yikes," Shaggy whimpered, his voice trembling. I think we just got a free ticket to the ghost show, Scoob." "Ro-ho," Scooby whimpered in agreement. And as the ghostly figure began to glide towards them, they knew their snack budget was the least of their worries. The funhouse door groaned open, revealing a dizzying labyrinth of distorted mirrors and tilting floors. The air inside was thick and musty, and the clinking noise they had heard from outside was now louder, more rhythmic. Scooby and Shaggy, their knees knocking together, crept forward, their eyes darting nervously. "I don't know about this, Scoob. This place is giving me the wool willies," Shaggy whispered. Scooby let out a low whimper in agreement, his fur bristling. Meanwhile, back at the park's main office, Velma was meticulously sifting through dusty boxes filled with old payroll slips and park blueprints. She was determined to find the link between the park's past and the present fraud. "There's got to be something here," she muttered to herself, her fingers flying through the stacks of paper. "This isn't just about making fake money. There's a financial history to this place that someone is trying to hide." She finally found a ledger from 20 years ago, its pages yellowed and brittle. As she flipped through it, she noticed a series of large, unexplained cash withdrawals, all marked with the same cryptic serpent and dollar sign symbol. Just then, a chill wind swept through the office, and a shadow fell over Velma. She looked up, her heart pounding. Standing in the doorway was the spectral figure, its form more solid and menacing than before. Its eyes glowed a malevolent green. "Leave the park's finances alone." A voice boomed, distorted and inhuman. Back in the funhouse, Shaggy and Scooby had found their way to the source of the clinking noise. They peeked around a corner and saw a small, makeshift printing press set up in a hidden room behind the Hall of Mirrors. A figure in a dark, hooded cloak was busily feeding paper into the machine. The ghostly figure they had seen earlier was just a clever projection from a small projector in the corner. The real villain was a flesh and blood person. It's not a ghost, Scoob. It's just some guy playing dress-up," Shaggy exclaimed in a relieved whisper. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the main corridor of the funhouse. "Zoinks! Did you hear that?" Shaggy gasped. The hooded figure looked up, startled. "Someone's here," the figure hissed, snatching up a large stack of money and a black satchel. "The funhouse is collapsing. We have to get out of here." Another voice cried out, and a second, smaller figure in a similar cloak appeared. Shaggy and Scooby, frozen in terror, were spotted. The two hooded figures, the mastermind and their accomplice, began to chase them. Scooby and Shaggy ran, their path twisting through the funhouse's confusing, distorted mirrors. The chase was comical, but also fraught with danger. They were cornered. Just as they were about to be caught, Daphne's voice rang out. "Look out, guys," she yelled, pointing to a lever on the wall. "That's the emergency shutdown for the funhouse's machinery. We saw it on the blueprints." Fred, who had been setting up a diversion with Fred and Daphne, quickly calculated. We can't just pull the lever. It will trap them in there. We need a better plan. Velma, who had just managed to escape the office, arrived, breathless. I found it, the ledger. It's not about counterfeiting money. It's about a Ponzi scheme. The villain has been giving out fake money to lure people into investing in a fake ride that never gets built. They're collecting real money and then paying out small sums of fake money as dividends to keep the scheme going. The ghost is just a way to make the park look too spooky for anyone to investigate. She pointed at the villains. They're using the park's old equipment and a clever scam to make a fortune. The two figures, hearing this, panicked and made a dash for the exit. Like, what do we do, guys? Shaggy shouted as the two villains disappeared into the maze of mirrors. We have to set a trap, a very specific trap, to catch them and their scheme, Fred declared. But what kind of trap could catch a financial fraudster? A trap that wasn't just physical, but economic. The chase was on, but this time, the stakes were higher than ever. All right, gang, listen up, Fred announced, his voice filled with a newfound intensity. Our usual ghost traps won't work this time. We're dealing with a different kind of monster, a financial fiend. We need to create an economic trap, a trap that preys on their own greed. He spread a detailed blueprint of the funhouse on a rickety table. My plan is simple, but it requires perfect execution. Daphne, you're our bait. You're going to create a diversion and act like you've discovered an even bigger secret treasure. Daphne's eyes lit up. A treasure? Like a hidden cache of old arcade tokens? She asked playfully. Better, Fred said with a glint in his eye. We're going to use the concept of scarcity against them. We'll pretend to have found a hidden stash of highly valuable limited edition park memorabilia. The kind of stuff collectors would pay a fortune for. They won't be able to resist. Like, what about us? Shaggy asked, pointing to himself and Scooby. Fred grinned. You two are the key. You'll be our distressed asset managers. You'll create a diversion by pretending to invest in something completely worthless, like old, used-up popcorn bags. Their greed will make them think they can get a better return on their investment by stealing from us. Rolled, rused-up popcorn rags. Scooby whimpered, looking utterly confused. Exactly. It's a classic example of risky investment, Velma explained, joining the conversation. They'll think they can pull a quick one on you two, and it will lead them right into our hands. Fred continued. Daphne will lead the first villain to the old prize claim booth. We've rigged it to look like it's filled with valuable collectibles. Then, as they're busy trying to steal the treasure, the second villain will fall for the popcorn bag diversion and chase Scooby and Shaggy. As the plan was set in motion, Daphne, clutching a small, vintage-looking Gloomwood Park trophy, walked past the funhouse's main entrance. Oh my gosh, Fred. Look what I found. It's a collector's item. It must be worth a fortune, she said loudly, just loud enough for the villains hiding in the shadows to hear. The first hooded figure, the mastermind, emerged, their eyes gleaming with avarice. Hand that over, you meddling kids, they hissed, running towards Daphne. Daphne, ever the quick thinker, led the figure on a chase, weaving through the park towards the prize booth. Meanwhile, Shaggy and Scooby, armed with bags of old popcorn, were making a scene near the funhouse. Like, I'm gonna invest all my money in these gourmet popcorn bags, Scooby, Shaggy announced to no one in particular, his voice overly dramatic. They're gonna be worth $1 bazillion in a week. The second, smaller hooded figure, the accomplice, emerged from the shadows. Popcorn bags? You fools. That's a worthless investment, they scoffed, running towards them. I'm going to take all your money before you waste it all. The chase was on. The mastermind was led to the prize booth, where they reached for the valuable trophy, only to trigger a net that dropped from the ceiling, trapping them instantly. At the same time, The accomplice chased Shaggy and Scooby towards a strategically placed oversized popcorn machine. The accomplice lunged for the bags of popcorn, but Shaggy and Scooby, with a perfectly timed zoinks and Ruby-Doo, pulled a lever, and the machine's inner components whirred to life, sending a massive, harmless puff of popped corn flying directly into the accomplice, trapping them in a fluffy, sticky mess. Both villains were trapped, but their capture wasn't quite complete. The mastermind, still inside the net, let out a frustrated growl. "You haven't won yet. My accomplice is still free, and they have all the money." The accomplice, struggling in the popcorn, defiantly held up the satchel. "That's right. You'll never get our money." But as the accomplice opened the bag to taunt them, a collective "huh" escaped their lips. Instead of piles of money, the satchel was filled with ... Monopoly money. Fred, Daphne, and Velma emerged from their hiding spots, a triumphant look on their faces. "Like, what's all this?" Shaggy asked, picking up a wad of fake cash. "It was a diversionary tactic," Velma explained. "We knew you'd be looking for the satchel, so we switched it with a fake one. This wasn't about the money. It was about the chase. And you took the bait." The two villains, now thoroughly confused and defeated, simply deflated. But as the gang began to unravel the mystery, the mastermind, still trapped in the net, let out a chilling, maniacal laugh. "You think you've won? You only caught my accomplice. I still have the real money. And the park's secrets." The mastermind reached into their cloak and pulled out a small metallic object. "You'll never know the real $1,000,000 secret of Gloomwood Park." The mastermind, still tangled in the net, held up a small metallic object, a key. "This key unlocks the park's master safe, where all the real profits are kept. You may have caught my accomplice, but you'll never get to the money." The villain cackled, a triumphant glint in their eyes. "Not so fast," a voice piped up. It was Daphne. She stepped forward, her purple scarf flying in the wind. "While you were gloating, I noticed something." She pointed to a small, barely visible logo on the villain's cloak. It was the same logo from the old, discarded music box, the reversed serpent and dollar sign. "That's not just a logo. It's a registered trademark of Serpent and Coin Ventures, an investment group that went bankrupt due to a massive Ponzi scheme 20 years ago." The mastermind's eyes widened in surprise. How did you know?" "Easy," Velma said, stepping into the light. "I checked the old park records." Serpent and Coin Ventures was the company that originally financed the park. They were notorious for creating elaborate schemes to lure in investors. The haunted park wasn't a coincidence, it was a distraction. All the ghosts and hauntings were a way to keep people from looking too closely at the park's financials. "And that's why you used the fake money," Fred added. "You were using it as a prop to make people think the park was profitable, so you could get them to invest in your new rides and schemes, and then take their real money." "But who are you?" Shaggy asked. "And what about the $1,000,000 secret?" Velma, with a flourish, ripped off the mastermind's hood. The villain was revealed to be Silas Snodgrass, the park's original accountant. "Zoinks," like a creepy accountant ghost. Shaggy exclaimed. "Not a ghost," Velma corrected. "A ghost of a bad investment strategy. You see, Silas was a brilliant accountant, but he was also obsessed with getting rich quick. He used the park's profits to invest in a Ponzi scheme and lost everything. He then faked his own death and spent years in hiding, perfecting his plan to reopen the park and scam a new generation of investors." "That's right," Silas snarled, his eyes filled with a desperate rage. "I knew I could use this park to get my revenge on the people who ruined me. I would give them a small taste of fake money to lure them in, and then I'd take everything they had. My ghost persona was a cover. I was going to use the key to the master safe to access the park's original, untapped reserves and finally be rich." "But what about all the real cash you've been collecting?" Fred asked, pointing at the satchel. "That's my accomplice's fault." Silas spat. "They were supposed to have the real money. They must have switched it by accident." The accomplice, who had just managed to untangle themselves from the popcorn, held up a small, empty, old-fashioned candy dispenser. "The money's not in the satchel. It's in the candy machine. I was using it as a decoy." The accomplice, a young park employee named Barnaby, gestured wildly towards an old, rusty candy dispenser. "Zoinks, like a treasure of candy?" Shaggy and Scooby said in unison, their eyes lighting up. But as Barnaby tried to open the dispenser, the mechanism jammed, and instead of a pile of cash, a small laminated card popped out. Velma picked it up and read it aloud. It was a certificate of deposit for a local bank, with a note from Silas's original partner, who had secretly been saving money to pay back all the investors he had scammed. The certificate was worth $1 million. "This is not just a lesson in crime," Velma said, holding up the certificate. "It's a lesson in economics." Barnaby and Silas were so obsessed with getting rich quickly that they fell for their own tricks. Silas's greed prevented him from ever seeing the real value of the park, which was in its history and its potential for a slow, steady income. Barnaby was so focused on the short-term goal of stealing money that he overlooked a simple rule of finance. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. The mystery was solved, the villains were caught, and the $1 million secret of the haunted park was revealed to be a lesson in financial wisdom. With Silas and Barnaby in the custody of the authorities, a sense of calm finally settled over Gloomwood Park. The police, after a thorough investigation, confirmed Velma's theory, stating that the ghost was an elaborate ruse to cover a massive Ponzi scheme. They also confirmed that the $1 million certificate of deposit was a legitimate asset, hidden by Silas's former business partner as a form of restitution for all the money they had lost. "Like, what a total wild ride, man," Shaggy said, leaning against the mystery machine. He patted his stomach, which was, for once, full. They had used the reward money to buy a feast of burgers and Scooby snacks. Who knew a mystery could teach you so much about, like, money and stuff? "It's all about thinking outside the box, Shaggy," Daphne said, her eyes twinkling. "Fred and I were just talking about it. Instead of just looking for clues, we had to think about the motive. And in this case, the motive was all about money." She took out a small notebook. "I'm going to start a savings account with my portion of the reward. It's a great way to save up for new clothes and, a new hairdryer. And I'm going to start a trap fund," Fred said proudly. "We'll save up for new gadgets and tools. It's an investment in our future as mystery solvers." Velma, ever the teacher, cleared her throat. "And that's the real lesson here, gang." Silas was focused on get-rich-quick schemes, which often involve high risk and lead to ruin. His accomplice, Barnaby, was focused on short-term gains, which led him to overlook a simple truth. Easy money is almost always a sign of a scam. The true wealth isn't in a quick buck, but in smart financial planning and long-term investments. Scooby-Doo, with a mouthful of Scooby snacks, let out a content burp. Rhea, rude Roni ranagement. Shaggy, munching on his burger, nodded in agreement. Like, I get it now. It's not about finding $1 million treasure. It's about making $1 million plan. Who knew? The gang all shared a laugh, the tension of the mystery finally gone. As they drove off in the mystery machine, the park's lights dimmed behind them, a silent testament to the secrets it held. But as they turned a corner, Shaggy looked back in the rearview mirror, and he saw a strange shimmering light coming from the old Ferris wheel. "Hey guys," he said, his voice a little too calm. "Like, is it just me? Or is that Ferris wheel, still spinning by itself?" The gang all looked back, and as they did, a low, ghostly voice echoed from the park. "Don't fall for the scams, or the haunting begins again." The voice sounded eerily like a familiar villain. Scooby-Doo and Shaggy shared a nervous glance, their stomachs grumbling for a different reason this time. It seemed their financial lessons were far from over.